Pokémon Fusion is an incredible fan game where you can fuse thousands of Pokémon together, and today I decided to focus on Dragon types. We all know Dragon types are the coolest Pokémon. Here's just a few of the awesome fusions I use in this run. This one I even used in my Elite Four team. You'll have to keep watching to see the rest though. I also decided to take it a step further, making every wild Pokémon in the game shiny, including my starter Deano. Dragon types are super rare, so I used this handy wheel to get me a new one after each gym battle. This time I got Gibble. To make the game harder, I put it on Modern Hard mode, which changes all the gym leaders' typings. Alright, let's get started. I fused my Dino with Duskull, making the edgy Duno, and Gibble with Meryl. After making my way through Viridian City, I challenged Brock, but in this game, he's a Steel-type trainer. I sent out Azubel, who knocks out a Duck with Dragon Rage. Brock sends out the wild-looking Steel Jr. I tried to use Dragon Rage, but it's a Fairy type, so it's immune. Azubel is able to lower its attack, but falls to Steel Jr.'s Confusion. I send in Duno, and the two exchange blows, but luckily, Duno takes it out with a Nightshade. And as easy as that, we got our first badge. It's time to spin the wheel again, and this time I got Axew. I immediately fused it with Shed Ninja. Azumarill evolved in Azuma Bite, and I refused Gabite with Gyarados, making Gyarados. I fused Dino and Mareep into Mano, and evolved it into Flaino. Alright, it's time to challenge Misty, who's now an Ice-type user. She leads with the adorable Glareary. I send out Flaino, who gets Unlucky Paralysis, but falls to Icy Wind and Hail. I then send out Gyarados, who bashes her with a Thrash, and does the same to Misty's Manoras. Gyarados is confused and only has 13 HP. It's now or nothing. Lucky for me, he hits through Confusion and earned us our second gym badge. Did you know that 99% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed? So why don't you hit that subscribe button and finally become a 1%er? After making it to the SSN, we battle Blue again. Taking this thing out with a powerful Dual Chop, Blue then sends out his Ninjard again, and I blast him with a Dragon Rage. But sadly, Shadou falls to Leech Seed. I send out Flaino, who is able to easily crunch through the rest of Blue's team. After beating Blue, I give this old dude a massage. I forgot to spin for Misty, but this time we got Horsey. I evolved in the Seadra and then had to box it. Now it's time for more fusions. I fused Axew with Jumpluff, making this crazy looking Jumpu. Nidoqueen and Dino created Dequeen, and Gabite and Electabuzz turned into Gabuzz. Man, these names are ridiculous. Now it's time to face Lieutenant Surge, the electric, fighting type master. Surge leads with Nose Key. I set up Leech Seed, and he paralyzed my Jumpu. Surge then sets up Stealth Rocks, and I do massive damage with Mega Drain and Leech Seed. Finally taking it out with another Mega Drain. He sends in his second Pokemon, so I switch to Gabuzz, who easily takes it out with a Dual Chop. Surge then sends out his final Mon, a badass looking Houndblade, who takes Gabuzz out with Bite. Jumpu does a little damage with Fairy Wind, but falls to Houndblade's Rock Smash. Finally, I send out Dequeen, who takes Houndblade out with a monstrous superpower. And with that, we got our third gym badge. Alright, it's time to spin again. This time I got Trapinch. I evolved in the Vibrava and fused it with Gyarados. Actually evolved into Fracture, and I fused it with Roserade. I evolved Seadra and fused Kingdra with Talonflame. It has a freaking smoking skull coming out of its beak. I fused Charizard and Gabite into the chunky Gezard, and finally I fused Dino and Torterra into this badass. After battling our way through Rocket Grunts, their leader challenges to a battle. He leads with Haunching, and let me tell you, this thing is a monster. Grava is able to take him below half health, but Giovanni heals and Grava knocks himself out. I try to set up with Dragon Dance, but he uses Swagger, confusing me. Lucky for me, it also increases my attack. We're able to tank a Drill Peck and Sludge Bomb, and then finally take it out with a Dragon Claw. Giovanni then sends out Ketgon, who is also a powerhouse. It knocks my Pokemon out, so I send in Terra, who uses Leech Seed and is able to whittle him down. I then switch to Gizzard and take out Ketgon with Dragon Claw. Gizzard takes out Smeargle with Dragon Claw too. Next comes Ditzian, who transforms into my Pokemon and then knocks him out. I sent out Towndra on the two exchange blows for a while, but in the end, I win the battle with a Twister. Honestly guys, that was one of the toughest fights in this entire game. Now it's time to battle Erica, who uses Bug types in this mode. Lucky for me, she's much easier than Giovanni. I take her first Pokemon out with a single Fly, and almost do the same to her crazy looking Volcanix. I finish it off with a second Fly, and Erica sends out her last Pokemon, who falls to a single Flamethrower. Man, that fight was a cakewalk. With the Rainbow Badge under our belt, it's time to spin again. This time we got Bagon, who I immediately evolved into Shelgon and fused with Togekiss into the adorable Togegon. Vibrava evolved into Flygon, and I fused it with Shed Ninja, creating this cool zombie Flygon. I fused Kingdra and Aggron into Agdra, Gabite and Slaking into the funny looking King, and finally Fracture and Machamp into the weirdly adorable Maxure. After fusing our new team, it's time to take on Koga, who's now a Dark type user. And for some reason, it's a double battle. Koga leads with Abtop and Weeron, and I send out Togegon and Shedgon. Shedgon uses Hyper Beam, revealing Ruizar, and then Togon KOs Abtop with a Moon Blast. It almost does the same to Koga's badass Haunchfire. Shedgon was then able to take it out with a Dragon Tail. Togon then takes out Weeron with another Moon Blast, and takes out Rearc with a Moon Blast too. For some reason, the AI just kept attacking Shedgon, so this fight was a cakewalk. After battling my way through Silph Co, I finally got Salamence, Haxorus, and Garchomp. Me and Blue made our way to face Giovanni, who's holding the CEO hostage, all in an effort to create Master Balls. We decided to intervene and challenge him to a double battle. He leads with the awesome looking Aegius, and the menace Haunching is back. They take out both of our Pokemon, and I send out Togemans. And Blue sends out Magtick. We almost take out Haunching, but Togemans falls to Flash Cannon. Luckily for us, Haunching blows up, and I send out my Garking. Garking takes out Aegius with a Crunch. It's a close battle, but Blue's Rupian falls to X-Scissor, and Garking falls to an Iron Head. Fragon also falls to a Dragon Claw, and Agdra finishes Donzer with Brine. We finally take out Giovanni's last Pokemon. Man, is he tough in this game. Giovanni then monologues for about 10 minutes and then leaves with the 3 Master Balls he stole. But hey, now it's time to fuse. I fuse Garchomp and Aegislash into the badass Aegachomp. Flygon on Monk turned into this derpy looking Mugon. Salamence and Fortress actually fusing this cool Smash Bros reference, and Kingdra and Empoleon created this guy. Last but not least, Haxorus and Aggron created the awesome looking Agarus, and now it's time to take on Sabrina, and in this game she's a fairy type user, which is really scary for our team. It's also still a double battle for some reason. She leads with Silvor and Togetails. Mugon one-shots Togetails with Gunk Shot and falls to a Psychic. I send out Agarus who one-shots Silvor with an Iron Head, and Agachomp finishes Mariku with an Iron Head as well. Sabrina is then down to her last Pokemon, but man does it look cool. I mean, its body is made of freaking planets, and man does it show, this thing is tanky. I'm able to whittle it down with some Iron Hits and finally finish it off. Now with the 6 badge done, it's time to spin the wheel. This time, we got Dratini. Didn't see that coming. I immediately evolved into Dragonite and fused it into the hilarious looking Drago Ward. Alright, now it's time to revamp the rest of the team. I fused Haxorus with Blastoise, creating this badass. Garchomp and Tentacruel turned into this monster that looks straight out of The Last of Us. Flygon and Chandelure created this majestic looking Shangon, and Kingdra and Duskull turned into Doodra. Lastly, Slaking and Salamence created this awesome looking lazy demon. After making our way to Cinnabar Island, I decided to challenge Blaine, who's now a Psychic type master. He leads with the creepy Mr. Clang. Shagun takes out the creep with 2 flamethrowers, but then falls to a Psycho Cut from Blaine's Gauchomp. I then send in Slaking, who lowers his attack and takes him to half damage with Crunch. Blaine switches to Zaking, and I sack Salaking after using Yawn. I send in the awesome looking Blastoise, who barely takes out Zaking with an Aqua Tail. Blastoise is a monster and becomes the MVP of this battle, taking out Gauchomp and himself with an Outrage. We both send out our final Pokemon, but lucky for me, Tentachop wins the exchange with the Crunch. And with that, we only have one more badge to go. But before that, we need to stop Team Rocket one final time. I follow them to Mount Ember and discover their true plan. Giovanni managed to capture the 3 legendary birds and fuse them into the mighty Zao Malkuno. But hey, it's time to ruin their plans once and for all. I lead with Drago Lord, who hits 3 heads with a powerful water spout before falling unconscious. Next comes Salaking, who's able to take out the Moltres head with a Dragon Claw, but then falls to an Ice Beam. Tentachomp is able to poison the Zapdos head, but he falls too. And finally, I send out Shangon, who takes out the Articuno head with a flamethrower, and the Zapdos falls to its poison. Oh man, that was actually the easiest Giovanni fight so far. After thwarting his grand scheme, Giovanni leaves to think about his life. I'm sure that's the last we'll see of him. And with all that boring crap out of the way, it's time for more fusions. I fused Haxorus and Ursaring into this adorable little guy, Garchomp and Klinklang into this chainsaw badass. I fused Salamence and Charizard, but it looks way cooler when it's not shiny. Dragonite and Sylveon into the cutesy Sylvanite, and Kingdra and Lapras turned into this guy. This has to be a reference, right? And for our last fusion, I fused Flygon and Snorlax into the chubby Snorgon. Well, time to fight Giovanni one last time. Oh yeah, also he's a normal type in this game. He leads with Ditzian, who transforms into my Haxring. Haxring is able to take a Play Rough and takes his Ditzian out with a Play Rough of his own. Giovanni's Mapam then finishes Haxring with a Karate Chop, and I send in Salazard. Salazard is able to take out Mapam with 2 Air Slashes, and then Giovanni sends out Snorky, who's a beast. I decided to send out my own Snorlax fusion and then swap to Salazard, hitting him with a Burn. I did that so I could lower his attack enough to make him useless. Next, I send out Kingris, who does a hefty amount of damage with Ice Beam. Giovanni switches to Tyrancy, who I can fuse after it thaws out. I then decided to switch back to Snorgon and poison it. After I whittling down its HP, Giovanni switches back to Snorking for some reason. Luckily, my Snorlax fusion is better and finishes it off with an Earthquake and Burn combo. Giovanni then sends out Kafka King, who takes out my Snorgon with a Hammer Arm. I then switch in Sylvanite, who uses Thunder Wave. Sadly, it falls after hitting Kafka King with a Moonblast. Finally, I'm able to finish Kafka King off with a Surf. Man, Giovanni has the hardest fights in this game. So well designed. But hey, now that's all behind us. Let's make our way to the Elite Four. It's time to fuse our final team of the run, but before that, we can finally evolve our starter. I've used Hydreigon with Dusknoir, creating this awesome Soul Weaver. Salamence and Aegislash creating Egamance, which is hands down the best fusion I've seen so far. Flygon and Kingdra created this majestic beast. Garchomp and Mr. Mime created this cursed Dragon Clown. And Dragonite and Rotom created this awesome Ronite. I love the almost Salamence color palette. And last up is Haxorus and Venusaur, who created this badass Gigantamax Venusaurus. And with our perfect team fused, it's time to take on the Elite Four. First up, we have the Water-type master, Lorelei. She leads with the epic Polion, who is one-shot by Ronite after he Dragon Dances. She then sends out the hilarious-looking Gyaraku, who is knocked out with a single Thunder Punch. Lorelei's Kingstar falls to 2 Thunder Punches, but her Scartops also falls to a single Thunder Punch. And the same thing happens to her Pukatum, but its ability ends Ronite's kill streak. Lorelei then sends out her ace, a freaking Milotic Giratina fusion. Look at this thing. I hit it with a Leech Seed and put it to sleep, slowly beating it with Petal Blizzard over and over and over. Finally, the legendary falls, and with that, we move on to our next opponent, Bruno, who now uses rock types. He leads with Tyrannoflame, which looks incredible. It immediately uses U-turn, and Bruno sends out Kingron, which also looks really cool. I burn it with a Will-O-Wisp to half its attack and then switch to Ronite. Bruno survives a Stone Edge and hits Kingron with a Thunder Punch. Bruno switches again, this time to Tyraflame, who gets low from one hit. Sadly, Ronite falls to Sandstorm. I decided to send in Hydraenor, and Tyraflame switches again with U-turn. Hydraenor is able to finish off Kingron with a Shadow Ball, but falls to another U-turn. Bruno then switches again, this time sacking his Terraflame. Thank God the AI keeps switching. I send in Garmine, but it falls to Bruno's Amazor. I then send out Agamance, who blocks a bunch of hits with King Shield, and finally Agamance knocks it out with an Iron Head. Then comes out Bruno's ace, Aerodon, a freaking Groudon fusion. Man, this team is stacked. I decided to sack Agamance after lowering Aerodon's attack. I then send in Kingdon, who's able to take out the monster with a few surfs. After that, Venus is able to take out Mirror with Pedo Blizzard. I decided to play it safe, setting up Bleach Seed and Sleep Powder on Crowloof, and I slowly take it out with Pedo Blizzard. It's now time to take on Agatha, who's now the Poison type master. She leads with Clinkfish, who sets up spikes before falling to Garmine's Flamethrower. Agatha's Clefairy knocks out my Garmime, and I send on Kingon to take it out with a double Earthquake. Kingon falls to our Krogon, and I send out my Venus, who takes it out with 2 Outrages. Our Giga Chad gets off 1 more hit before falling unconscious. I send in Ronite, but he also falls to Agatha's Houndsing, but luckily Agamance is able to mop it up with an Iron Head. And then here it is, Agatha's Legendary, a freaking Mu-O, who looks incredible. I switch to Hydranor, who's able to confuse and burn the Legendary, almost taking it out. After Hydranor falls, I send out my last Pokemon, Agamance, who tanks a super effective Sacred Flame, hits it with a Crunch, and Mu-O falls to its burn. Okay, we're both down to our last Mon now. Lucky for me, she only uses status moves, and I'm able to win the battle with a few Iron Heads. This is one of the toughest Elite Fours I've ever fought. It's time to face the final Elite Four member, Lance, the Flying type specialist. My Agamance is able to take out his Toga Flame with an Iron Head, but then Lance sends out his ace, Dark Knight, which is one of the best fusions of all time. Look at this thing. I switch to Hydranor, who tanks the Fire Blast and uses Confuse Ray. Hydranor does her best to chip away at Dark Knight's HP, but finally falls to a Dark Pulse. I then send in Agamance, who stalls the turn with King Shield, and then swap to Kingon. I decided to sack it, but luckily Dark Knight falls to its burn. Garmime is able to take out Lance's Volgot with a double Flamethrower combo, and then I decide to send in my monsters Venus, who takes out Lance's Subdactyl with an Outrage. He hits Snorkor too, and then falls to its U-turn. I decided to send in my Garmime, but he falls without doing anything. But now it's time for the ultimate mirror match, Agamance versus Agamance. Lucky for me, I'm able to completely abuse the AI with King Shield, lowering its attack, and then the AI will just waste its turn using Sword Dance, which allows me to get a free hit every time. After a bit of this, I'm able to take it out with a final Sacred Sword. Then we're both down to our last Pokemon. Lance sends out Snorkor. I lower its attack in the same way, and then it becomes a stall fest, with its attack being useless, but Snorkor constantly heals from Poison Heal. Thankfully, Agamance finally delivers the final blow, and we win the battle. Well, here we are. Our rival became champion 5 minutes before us, like he always has. It's time to knock him down a peg. I send in my Garmime, who hits Ninsharp with a Fire Blast and survives a hit too. With Ninsharp's Focus Sash out of the way, Garmime is able to one-shot Ninsharp with a Fire Blast. I switch in Kingon to face Blue's Chandeville. I'm able to waste a bunch of his heals, but Kingon falls after getting Chandelure to low HP. I then send in my starter, Hydranor. He's able to finish it off with a Shadow Sneak, and Blue sends out Haxmans, who sadly takes out Hydranor with an Outrage. I then sent in Garmine, who decimates Haxmans with a Moonblast. Oh man, here it is. Blue sends in his ace, Luxius, a fucking Arceus fusion. Dude casually caught God. Luxius takes out Garmine with an extreme speed, so I send in Ronite, who almost takes out the God of Thunder with an Outrage, but falls as well. Think Arceus Lucius falls to its Life Orb. I sent out Venus to set up Toxic and Leech Seed on Blue's Runion, but he falls to her Hyper Voice. It's time to send out the MVP of this run, Agamance. I decided to set up a Swords Dance and finish her off with an Iron Head, but then Blue does something shocking. He sends out Torterion. Not only did he have God, he has a freaking triple fusion. I decided to lower its attack with King Shield and then tank a Flare Blitz. Agamance is somehow able to half-health the beast with the Sacred Sword, and I stall one more turn out of fear, but then take out Torterion with a final Sacred Sword. And with that, the run is complete. Man, I hope you guys enjoyed this awesome Dragon type run. If you enjoyed, check out my Fire type run of Pokemon Fusion shown on screen.